you are already convinced that we're a network of relationships?
Say that again.
How many of you are already convinced that we are a network of relationships? Okay, pretty much everybody. Okay, how many of you believe that you're still a sponge? Okay, a little bit less. Okay, great. So for the sponge evidence, I'm just going to cite one thing. I don't have very many statistics around it, but I think that corporate advertising, the only statistic I have is 2006, the $450 billion spent on corporate advertising is proof that humans are sponges. They wouldn't spend $450 billion on image, on giving you what they want you to think about them if we weren't influenceable. So that's, I don't have a lot more to say about that, other than think about your environment, your home environment. So just imagine your home environment, right? You're at home, okay? Now imagine yourself with your family during the holidays, in that environment. Do you think you're influenceable? Are you sponging up what's happening from those people? Yeah, I mean, yeah. So maybe that's all we need to say, right? So if you have any doubt, just go back to that place. If you are truly enlightened, you'll go back to your family and nothing will change with you. You will just walk through that space in pure bliss. Some people have really empowered great relationships with your family. Now that's not to say it has to be negative. You may have a really positive experience with your family, but you're still sponging. You're still taking something in, whether that be positive or negative. So I just want to basically say, you're a sponge, please accept that. It's critical. Because it is, you have to, if you want to hold on to the idea that you are this individual that's here alone and can resist the world around you, you can do that, but you're going to struggle your whole life. And what I'm trying to do is present a system that will show you how to, with ease and joy, accomplish what you want. And the first thing that you need to do is you need to acknowledge that you're a network of relationships and that you are still a sponge, just like a little child. You just think you're more of an identity right now. I'm me, right? When you're a kid, you don't have an I'm me yet. You start it, right? You start definitely creating that boundary, but that boundary is in mind, primarily, maybe only. I don't know. So a way that I like to talk about this, which really works for me, is we're a point of perception and a point of action in a network of relationships. We are not separate from that network of relationships. We are simply, it's almost like we are the, for lack of a better term, someone's probably already said it, we are the earth making itself conscious. Right? We're the solar self making itself conscious. We're the universe making ourselves conscious. We're God making itself conscious, however you want to articulate that. But we do not exist in a vacuum. You take away our environment, you take away our social structure, and we're gone. There's nothing there. So we are that network of relationship. So the more that you start to identify with yourself, not as Mike Stokes, the teacher who's trying to do a good job right here, but as a community of beings, in this room right now, a community of humans and the larger community. So the more I start to think about myself as that, I'm a point of perception and a point of action within a community, then the way I approach my goals is going to be very different than if I'm me, just doing my thing in the world. So from the point of the network of relationships, what's most important is what those relationships look like. How those relationships are working or not working. So that's point number one. You're a network of relationships and you're still a sponge. Point number two is, so if these two things are true, where do I now put my attention? So what I would say is, and this is what I'm hoping to convince you of too, or hopefully you're already, or some of you may already believe this, that primarily we're a social being, right? Primarily it's people that affect us. right? That's why we want romance. That's why who knows the second greatest fear? Public speaking. Death is number 2. Public speaking is number 1. Why is public speaking number 1? Because we're social creatures. Because as we evolved, literally survival meant acceptance by the pack. Sorry, creationists. As we evolved, survival meant acceptance by the pack. So for all of that time, in our human evolutionary state, we were in small bands. And those small bands were literally our survival. So it's hardwired up here to seek acceptance from that band. And it predates human and goes back to our primate ancestors, because their bands are their life. You're out of the band as a primate, you're out. You're gone. You're not surviving anymore. And you're certainly not thriving. So if you want to thrive, if you want to survive and thrive and be happy, you've got to focus on your social structure. It is the number 1 ecosystem that impacts you. So not from a standpoint of pure survival, like you've got to have water, air, and food, right? You can survive. But from a standpoint of what motivates you to change, to grow, to become, to expand, you have to have, like in, what's the hierarchy of needs? Is that Maslow or is that? Maslow is in the hierarchy of needs. You have to have that social structure fulfilling those basic needs. And each one of our social structures are going to be different, and each one of our social structures are going to have capacities that are developed and capacities that are not so developed. So, I lost my spot again. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. So a couple more examples, because I really want to drive this point home. Because there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of places that we could focus on this designing your ecosystem. We could focus on the world. We could focus on your house. We could focus on your mind. We could focus on a lot of things. But we're going to focus today on our social structure. Because from my studies, that's the most impactful place. That's the place where you're going to produce the biggest result. And this is a really interesting point. You can focus on mental work, and you can do mental work, and mental work is really critical and really good. But if you do mental work and you neglect your social ecosystem, you're paddling upstream hard. And it's going to be really hard. It's going to take a lot of effort. You might get there, but you're going to get there by sheer will of force. You're not going to get there by grace and ease and flowing in relationship. So that's why we're going to focus on our social structure. So a couple more examples. I've noticed this over the years as I've been thinking about this, that people of great, and especially creative genius, they run in packs. There's, what are the artists, John?
Picasso and Braque and Jasper Johns and Rauschenberg, anyways.
Yeah, so let me just, a couple more. Emerson, Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, Mark Twain, Nikola Tesla. For the surfers and outdoorsmen in the room, Yvonne Chouinard and Douglas Tompkins. Those are Patagonia and North Face, respectively. They were buddies. Ernest Hemingway, Ezra Pound, Scott Fitzgerald, Gertrude Stein, and T.S. Eliot all hung out together. So it is by no way the only way to create something great in your life, but it sure works. And it sure is fun. I personally would rather have that type of structure in my life feeding my greatness than trying to power it out by myself. I mean, that's fine too. If you're into that sort of dynamic, that could be a good source of joy for you. I don't want to discount working by yourself. There's total goodness, there's total greatness in that too. But if you're trying to accomplish one thing through your mind space, and everything in your social ecosystem is trying to push you in the other direction, and you're not working on your social ecosystem, that's not very smart. Don't do that. Okay, so a couple other things. I really like these examples, and I'm just going to drive this point home so that hopefully you're going to go home and you're going to be like, I am going to get to work on my social ecosystem. The centenarians of Okinawa. So the three longest living places that they found on Earth are the centenarians of Okinawa, you could call them the centenarians of Ikaria in the Greek islands, and then I don't have much information on it, but there's also a tribe of mestizos in the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. So the common thread between those is a very powerful structure of social interaction. Those people hang out all the time. Every day. They go to lunch together, they have dinner together, they play dominoes together, they go to community centers together. All the time they hang out. So if your goal is to live to be 100 and happy and fulfilled, strong social structure. Nothing else is consistent with long life and health other than strong social structure and a purpose for life. So having in yourself, and that'll get to the next part of your social structure, is your role. Your role in your social structure is defining, articulating, knowing, embracing, saying, expressing your unique gift to the world, starting with the people around you. You have to have that to give if you want to live a fulfilled, dynamic life. So this is beyond just accomplishing your goal, but the more it's not really, it's connected. The happier you are, the more fulfilled and dynamic you feel in your entire life, the more easy it is to achieve your goals. There's a lot of studies that support that. And then, this is, I'd be leaving out information if I didn't tell you this. The other thing that is common to all of those cultures is they all eat well and they all take time off. They all chill. They socialize to just socialize and they relax. There's real dedicated times for that. There's hard work. There's incredibly hard work, but there's also incredibly deep relaxation in it. So this is actually another way to bring home sort of the principle that we're social creatures. Let me see if I can articulate this right. I was trying to figure out how to say this in my mind before I came here. Is there anyone who would be willing to make themselves look like a total jerk, a total ass to everyone in the room? Not in a funny way, but like that everyone would really disapprove of you. I don't think there's anybody. None of us want to do that because it taps into that emotional root place that says social acceptance is more important than anything else. So have I convinced you to work on your social ecosystem yet? Yeah. That was the main purpose of that talk, was to convince you to start working on it.